You're listening to the Yoga for Balance podcast. I'm your host, Heather Gjerde. Thank you so much for listening. Today on the show, I have Jennifer Duranio. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for listening at home. Really excited to share this conversation with you today. Before we dive in, let's take a nice deep breath together to just ground, connect, and come into this moment. Take a nice deep breath in. And an open mouth exhale out. All right. So Jennifer, I'd love for you to just share with listeners a little bit about you, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Oh gosh, how much time do we have? So I currently live in San Diego with my family. I have two kids. They're 6-year-old twins, boy, girl. And they are completely bilingual, Spanish, English, and that comes from the fact that I used to be, in a previous life, a high school Spanish teacher. And before that, I was an ESL teacher, and so I worked with many younger kids, so these were between grades 4 and 6, that were recent immigrants or come from families where they were speaking other languages at home and perfecting and working on their English in school. And so that I was their teacher, got to really develop a sense of empathy and compassion for those of otherness. How did I get there? I grew up in a very small town of less than 6,000 people, fewer than 6,000 people in Minnesota. And you would probably not suspect that I would learn to speak Spanish through my middle school and high school years, but that's exactly what I did. The reason I studied Spanish was because that was the only way in my perception that I was going to be able to get out of my little small town. As in, my high school Spanish teacher, Miss Dean, led a group of students to Spain every other year, and I was like, that's my ticket out. I can go see the world. I can go just leave small town Minnesota and go discover different lands if I'm bilingual. And so that led me on that journey. Coming back, moving forward through time, it was 12 years ago that I met my husband. I was still teaching at that time. And teaching has always been in my blood. I'm still teaching. I'm just teaching in different capacities. I'm not teaching high school kids Spanish and opening their worlds to new sights and sounds and capacities of understanding human intelligence and human experience. I am now doing that same work in different ways as a yoga teacher and also as an educator with Beauty Counter. So, my life has evolved in very interesting ways, and I think that it will continue to do so. Like what I was at 25 is not what I was at 35, and certainly is not what I'm going to be when I turn 45 in just a few short months. So. Yeah, my husband was in the military for 28 years, and he's retired Army. And that, in fact, is what brought us here to San Diego. We moved here 2 years ago, and it's been an amazing ride to upend my Taurian energy of stability. Was very difficult for me because I had my tribe, I had my people, I had my the friends that knew and supported me, and I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to say what I stood for. They already knew. And then coming here, it's both exciting and challenging, because it's exciting to be able to connect with so many new people, but also challenging because when you're feeling out your new space, and I'm sure that you've had this experience too, leaving the Midwest and going different places, that sometimes you don't understand how the relationships that you first start can unravel or unfold. I don't mean unravel in the negative sense. I mean unfold in a positive sense into long-term, beautiful friendships and things that my energy and my experience lends to them, and they're able to give to me, and that beautiful flow of energy that you just don't know, like when you start something, where it might lead you. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So many, yes, cross paths at Spanish. Going to Spain was my first time out of the country, learning. And same, I wanted to major in Spanish to learn this culture and language, and it's just such a beautiful way to be exposed to people and culture. And definitely was a doorway out of the Midwest, I'll admit.
The Midwest is wonderful in many, many ways. And there are plenty of opportunities in the Midwest to connect with people of other backgrounds. It's just a lot more intense here living in Southern California, where, I mean, we literally are 3 miles away from the border. And it's such a beautiful thing to be in such close proximity, my neighbors being Spanish speakers. And like, you wouldn't think that at me as a white blonde Minnesotan living in Southern California that I'm speaking more Spanish now than I ever did when I was teaching Spanish. But it's true, and it's really a beautiful sort of melding of where my past was and how I and we with my family came to where we are. So, yeah.
So teaching and now teaching yoga. So we know each other. Right. We are here in a beautiful space near Chula Vista called the Harvest Wellness Center in the village of Escaya. Absolutely gorgeous studio here for this private community. I love what we're doing here. And that's what brought us together, this beautiful harvest.
Yeah.
And so I'd love for you to explain your experience of yoga and how did yoga come into the picture and become the way it is here.
I think yoga was, I think this is a common story, a common thread in many of our stories is that we come to yoga or yoga finds us when we're going through places of stress in our lives, right? We're looking for something to bring us back to center because the stress of whatever situation we're encountering necessitates us recentering. And so that was entirely my story. I was teaching, I was teaching at that point high school Spanish. This is a really long time ago. Gosh, when was I there? It was 20 years ago, maybe? I was maybe 26, 25, almost 20 years ago. And there arrived a yoga teacher through like a community ed class, a community education class. And she taught class in a classroom. She just came to all the teachers. And so I signed up and I'm like, this I dig. Like, this is really cool. And it was at the place where, it was totally not ideal conditions, like so much noise around us because it was open classroom and there were posters on the wall continually drawing your attention away from your breath and to, what's that poster on the wall say? What are the rules of this classroom? But that is the singular thing that my yoga practice, and I think that this probably can resonate with a lot of people, is that with so many distractions around us, that when we're able to focus the mind on that singular thing, right? It's not about, I feel like the biggest misconception about meditation, for example, and meditation is just like the center, the heart of a yoga practice, but sometimes it can be a moving meditation, and that's what vinyasa can stand for. That in this world of so many distractions, it's not about clearing the distractions. There's no possible way to clear them all out of your path, right? But if you focus on the most important, on the most pressing, on the most connecting for you, then you're able to move forward, right? And so that misconception of just clear your mind is impossible. Our brains are literally not wired to clear. They're supposed to be messy, and they're supposed to, just like life, it's like one big metaphor for life, right? Life is messy, and so are brains, and our brains are designed in that way. I mean, I'm going back to all this educational stuff that I learned back in my master's program and before, but our brains are wired to jump from idea to idea. And when we come to a yoga practice, we focus those monkeys of the mind, we focus them on one singular thing. And that, when in one style of meditation, is the breath. And so if you can focus on just feeling the sensation of air moving through your body and air leaving the body, then all the stress hormones, that cortisol, just melts away, and we come back into a place where we can make adult decisions instead of living in that reptilian mind of fight, flight, and freeze that is not doing us any favors in today's life, right? That there are no saber-toothed tigers anymore, but that difficult boss can sure produce the same stress response. And so when we come to our mats and we come to the focus of the mind and bringing it into the breath and finding the motion and both the effort and the ease of a more powerful style yoga class, it brings that a focused attention and energy, right, to our beings that no other form of exercise or movement in my experience, and I've experienced a great majority of them, and I enjoy all of them. No other form of movement or class can bring you that same ending at the end of that hour or at the end of that experience of both being relaxed and also highly alert and at peace and ready to move. And you know, that it's that duality, that union of opposites that a yoga practice has, that weightlifting will never bring. Weightlifting has a whole nother set of benefits, right? But it's not that. And that is what continually returns me to my yoga mat, and the joy that I find at the end of a yoga class having taught. Then I can look at my students and feel with them that sense of effort and active attention and the ease that they feel at the close of class. It's just magic.
It's so helpful when you're teaching from a place of experience, and you have experience. And I'm pretty sure majority of yoga teachers, exactly why I start every show with this question, we have experienced it ourselves. And when you're teaching from that place, you're hopefully sharing something of value. And maybe if it doesn't click that day, but the next that, there's such a slew of tools. And
there are. And it's I haven't shared this yet, but I'm also a runner. And I feel like running and yoga are so similar in so many ways. And my ability to get through marathons is because of my yoga practice, that focus of the mind, right? That I was just talking about, that sense of Zen, that I am just absolutely there in the moment. I'm experiencing it, and I can both appreciate what the mile that just happened, and I can also say there's another mile waiting for me, no matter where I am in that marathon, that this is where I am now. And drop the shoulders away from the ears, focus on the breath, be in the moment, feel the emotions, just get captured by that moment, right? To live there and be in the mile that you're in, right? And that happens, it's a life lesson, right? Like, wherever you are, be there. Put your phone down. Open your eyes. Be with the people that are at the table. You went to a restaurant to be with your friends. Why are you all on your phones? Put your phones away. Put them in a box and just be with your friends, right? We were losing that human connection, and I think it's as much we're disconnected from our own bodies as we're disconnected from the people that we love and care for. And if we are able to focus that attention, again, it all comes back to focusing your attention on what matters in front of you and being in the moment, then you can get through anything. Focus, right? Take that deep breath and draw that cortisol level down, move into the oxygen, like just feel, right? And be there. That's all. I mean, if that's the one lesson that I could offer to my fellow runners and other enthusiasts of more forceful styles of exercise, right? It's that instead of trying to push our bodies, we should want to be in our bodies. And there is both the push and the pull that we can sense in the body. But if we're not feeling what our body is telling us, then we're more likely to get injured, right? And I mean, I'm dealing with injuries as we speak. My knee is not happy with me. And it's a running injury, not because of running, although I know a common friend of ours would disagree, caused by running on the streets here in San Diego that are uneven. And so I wrecked my MCL. And it's just causing havoc on other aspects of my knee health. So, but that's the thing. Like, everything is a journey to the next thing, right? What's the next step? Like, what do I do next? Who is the next person I'm going to meet that might unlock a little nugget of information to help me move better in my body and be more effective in my thoughts and, that kind of stuff.
And that's why it's so important, I think, as a yoga teacher to have these conversations, to constantly be reminded. That's why I love this podcast, because it just offers up, even if it's just the contemplation of these topics, and there is no answer, or the answer is different today than it was yesterday, you might get this glimmer of information or anecdotes or truth that just gets you to see the situation in a new way, or gets you closer to that solution, or to your goal or vision, or whatever, or to recovering from that thing that happened that you couldn't do anything about, or that was going to happen regardless. So now why suffer, rather, see it.
But the interesting thing about that, about having that injury, is that it's led me down researching in a way that I've never. I mean, I'm a self-professed nerd, and I want to learn it all. But it's led me down some interesting paths of learning about how bodies work in a way that before the injury, I wouldn't have been able to name. But when you go through a hardship, that's what forces you to learn and grow, right? No matter whether it's a divorce or a death in the family or a significant illness, or like, these things happen to all of us. And we can either shut down and just ignore them, or we can open ourselves up to new knowledge, to new relationships, to new, there is so much wealth in the world that is not monetary. And that wealth brings us to new awareness about what we stand for and what we don't stand for, right? What's important to us, what we value, and then we're able to share it. I mean, that's the beauty as a teacher, right? When you're in the role as a teacher, you get to bring all of that stuff, right? All of that life experience to the benefit of your student. And I feel like the older I get, the more wealth of shit, right, I've been able to experience. And it's a gift, right?
It's a gift.
It is a gift. All that crap that we go through, like, it's a gift. It's supposed to teach us something. And when we feel stuck, it's because we're trying to, like, work ourselves out of that chrysalis, right? If we are the caterpillar inside a chrysalis, and we have to struggle and work to open up that chrysalis, if somebody else just unlocks and opens up that chrysalis for me, I'm never going to learn the lessons I was supposed to learn. I'm never going to do it myself and be proud of myself for my ability to overcome, and at the same time recognize the lesson that I was supposed to learn, but I don't know what that lesson is in this very moment, right? And that it's a repeated narrative. It just, every time we struggle, it's just me growing a little stronger. It's just me figuring out where my wings are and how to fly better, right? And how to fly more effectively and how to lift others as I fly.
And I think, when you start out becoming a yoga teacher, you think you need to have all the answers or the solutions. Or I felt that way as the journalist that always was researching, also a nerd in the sense of, I have this challenge. I want to know every answer, every solution. But sometimes there's so much beauty in sharing whatever stage of that process you're in, which may not be the end, may not be the solution, because you're not sitting up there at the front of the room saying, I have all the answers.
No. Oh, gosh.
I'm just like you. I'm at one stage of this process. Right. This is what I'm pondering. This is what I'm learning. This is part of what I've found to be my solution or my recovery from this, but I don't necessarily know that it's the end all be all or that it will work for you.
So there's a phrase for that. It's called learning out loud.
Yes.
Learning out loud. Like, I'm learning this thing and I would like to share my learning with you. I don't have all the answers because there is no right answer, right? I'm just learning as I go. And that is what makes us uniquely human. We're just all learning as we go.
I'd love you to share a little of your experience juggling teaching yoga with parenting. And you also do have another business as well with Beauty Counters. So how is that? And for anyone listening that might be looking to go down that journey of motherhood and a career, or is currently in that process, or where you are,
I think in my own experience, I can only speak to my own. It's when you have little kids, right, they're like birth to 5 before they enter kindergarten. You're really limited to where you can teach and also where you can practice, because you have these little ones that are depending on you. And if you're trying to be, if the goal is for you to be present with your kids in like a flexible kind of job where you can come and go with the kids, and there's room for all styles of parenting, right? There's absolutely room for the mother who decides to go back to work full time in a different setting, right? The choice that I wanted to take was to be present with my kids as they grew, because I was an older mom. I mean, when my kids were born, I was 38, and I had done the whole career thing. I had stressed about the students that I had, and I had stressed through all of the conflict, and I hate conflict. I really, I avoid conflict, and I know it's one of my biggest faults. But maybe it's a gift, because I'm also, if you've taken your Enneagram, I'm the peacemaker. And I just want peace. And when there's conflict, and when you're teaching in the public schools and lots of other positions, there's just so much conflict all the time. And I think today's society is all about what you're doing to me as opposed to what we can do together, right? And a lot of the conflict happens with parents, because parents think that teachers are doing things to their kids instead of doing them with their kids, right? And so that was the conflict that I was most averted to, because I didn't have the tools and the support around me to help bring parents into the process, to help them understand that, I don't know, a teacher who has a master's degree in her subject area and teaching that subject area probably should be believed because she's read the most recent research, but who cares about research? You're not teaching it the way I want you to teach it to my kids, and so therefore you're wrong. Well, I don't know. I think that we should probably, pay attention to science and research and know, right? My own little soapbox there. When I'm teaching yoga, nobody leaves upset, right? Nobody's parents come back to talk to me about how I didn't teach that savasana. And I told them to put their hands up instead of their hands down. And I mean, there's not that nitpicky thing. The yoga community, everybody comes in and they're just appreciative for what you give them, of what you're able to provide in the ways that what I'm able to provide helps someone grow, right? Or calm, or both in the same exact session, right? But I guess I would give advice to studio owners to consider more options for childcare. both for teachers and for the yoga students, especially for those moms of young kids. Having just gone through that process, like I wasn't able to start teaching here until my kids were in kindergarten because there simply were no, let's just say there's not no options, but the options are limited for where I can teach and also have daycare or childcare for my kiddos. And I think that's a huge opportunity for studio owners to consider. I know it adds a lot of layer of difficulty, but in this market, many of us families here in San Diego, we're military families. We don't have family nearby, right? And so it's not like I have grandma or an auntie or someone nearby who can watch my kid for 2 hours while I go practice yoga. And we moms, we just so need the self-care. We need that time away just to be us, right? And the way that I was able to achieve my me time in that space was when they were far littler, was to get out the stroller, the double stroller, and that was me with my twins, and the double bob with my border collie on the leash. I think that once the kiddos get to a kindergarten age, then it's far easier because then you have flexibility if you're not returning to a full-time, gig. And that actually works really well with having another business because, in my yoga classes and in my outside life, right, I'm constantly connecting with people who are of like mind. We're looking to be healthier people. We're looking for a way to have a significant impact, right, on others. And because being quote unquote just a mom, being a mom is fantastic. I'm not gonna lie. It's also really hard. But for those of us who are looking to have a bigger sort of social mission for ourselves and a bigger purpose, outside of being a parent, because you're a mom for, let's say, 18 years when they're with you, and then what happens after, right? What are you left with? Who is the you that when the kids are gone, right? That you still stands strong as a pillar, right? And with a purpose. And so what I've been able to do is actually combine teaching yoga with also a beauty counter business, and I started literally at the same time, both. I did my yoga teaching certificate back in Minneapolis out of Life Power Yoga with Lifetime Fitness, where I had been practicing for over 10 years. And my teachers encouraged me often to get my yoga teacher certificate so I could teach with them. And it finally, the stars aligned, right? The proverbial stars aligned that it was the right time when I was home with my kids. They were 2. I had just completed my first marathon, and I was like, okay, I don't see myself going back to high school teaching, right? I don't see that yang of my life resolving itself and coming into a better place for me personally, and I don't see that as a future of being a mom of young kids, being able to be both a great mom and also a great teacher for all the other kids, right? So I had to choose. And I think I'm doing lots of good for the world in my new role, right, as educator with Beauty Counter. And I really, honestly, with Beauty Counter, it's all about education. We're all about bringing, with a mission of bringing safer products or getting safer products into the hands of everyone. And so whenever I'm talking about health and wellness, it's always education forward. It's always, so if we know something, if we have that little piece of that nugget of information that helps lead us to a better, healthier life, right? If we know that avoiding fragrance, synthetic fragrance in the majority of our products will minutely, I say minutely because we can't pinpoint, like scientists in this current climate in the United States, we are not able to pinpoint one thing that's causing us to be ill. As a society, right? We can't pinpoint that one thing. It's a lot of things. Our bodies are not equipped. Our bodies were never created with the intention of being into contact with so many environmental toxins and so many chemicals that we've created in their man-made labs, right? Lots of those chemicals are really amazing, and they work better than natural ingredients, and they're safer than natural ingredients, and some of them are not. The problem with our industry is that, and this is like that education, right, and legislation, that power, that we're changing the world, that I felt when I was teaching high school Spanish, is that we at Beauty Counter have a team of staffers that work specifically on legislative action. And so we've been behind many of the changes in legislation that have happened and that are still currently in process. In fact, because if our legislators don't know there's a problem with the chemicals in the products that we're using every single day on our bodies, they don't know to change the law. And so through legislative action and through education of knowledge of what ingredients to avoid and which ingredients to adopt. For example, retinol. Retinol is a big ingredient that many women specifically, because we're looking for better skin always. We always want to look younger, right? Retinol is super effective at anti-aging, and it's also really effective at fighting acne. And why does it work? It works because it turns over your cells super, super fast. Our concern at Beauty Counter is that, and the EWG and other organizations that are working with us on the same missions of truth and transparency and ingredient safety, we are concerned that retinol may speed cell turnover so fast in such a way that it affects our expression of our DNA, i.e. cancer, right? And so what we and the scientists at Tufts University and the EWG and all sorts of other Healthy Child, Healthy World, we have been working on and now have created a collection of skincare that is non-retinol. It's Ayurvedic. And that ingredient, the key ingredient, is called bakuchiol. You can find bakuchiol. It's an Ayurvedic ingredient that has all of the benefits of retinol with none of the concern. And so if you know this, right, if you're armed with information, then you can go to your favorite brand and say, why are you still using retinol, right? Why are you still using the synthetic fragrance that might be interrupting my hormone expression? Why are you using these ingredients that you haven't tested? And I understand we don't want to test on animals, but we also don't want to test on ourselves. Why are we the test subjects? Why is the FDA not forcing companies to I mean, you can see how jazzed up I get about this topic. But it unearths like this passion and drive that is equal to the passion that I feel for what I offer to my yoga students, right? In a different sense, that everybody has skin, and most of us are really trying to do better. But we always do better when we know better. And so when we are armed with information, then we can demand change from grassroots level. And if I give you my business card, and the backside of my business card is our 800 ingredient never list. It's abbreviated down to like the top sort of 30 ingredients do you want to avoid. But when I give you my business card, I really do want you to take it to Walmart, take it to Sephora, take it to Ulta, take it to Target, and turn and look at that ingredient list and compare what you can find on the shelves, and really understand that most of what you're going to look at on the shelves is really harmful for us. And when Target has heard the message loud and clear, and so is Sephora. There's a section at Sephora called Clean at Sephora. There's a section at Target, when you look on their website, it's like Clean Beauty. And those are a direct result of us as women powered with information, powered with knowledge, and powered with science behind us, right? And our voices. That when we tell Target, hey, Target, where's my better deodorant? Where's my non-aluminum deodorant? And by the way, it has to work, because nobody wants deodorant that doesn't work, right? And Sephora got the message too. They have that, and that's a direct result. Like, I'm super proud. I'm not afraid of Sephora being a competitor in the clean beauty business. I am open arms and welcoming them in and saying, welcome to the sphere, because together we make a difference, right? We are clearly leading that and going beyond clean and really digging into our supply chains and looking at MICA and child labor. And we're a B Corporation, so that's something to be super proud of. All the certifications are out there. It's just, it's just an amazing feeling to be part of a tribe, like the yoga tribe, like the running tribe, right? That of mostly women. Of course, we have men too, but mostly women trying to really get the word out and voice our concerns so that consumers like you and me can go to Target and find a sunscreen that's safe for our kids and also safe for the coral reefs. We shouldn't be hiding science. We should be highlighting science and saying, if we know our coral reefs are being damaged by octanoxate and oxybenzone, and avobenzone has its own set of problems because it's accompanied by another ingredient that is harmful to human health. Why are we putting that on our kiddos? Why are we putting it on ourselves, right? So, the flexibility that arrives, that brings my family, means that when I can be present for my kids, right, when they're with me, and I can also flex my time so that I can teach in the mornings. Fortunately, I have the support of my husband so that I can teach at night, some classes here and there, but also have a meaningful voice in a mission and feel the value that I felt, and the power to be able to make a universal change, right? And make this world a better place, that I was feeling as a Spanish teacher, because I wasn't just teaching verb charts. I mean, I was the teacher teaching, like, okay, we're going to use this piece of literature and we're going to figure out what this means. Like, what was the experience of the people? And if we could put ourselves in their shoes, like, that was the kind of teacher I wanted to be, and that I got pushed back for being. But I could do that. I can do that now, right? Because I'm working with mostly adults, and I love it. I'm absolutely, totally impassioned by both of those roles, and they work really, really well together.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Final question.
Yes.
Do you have a 10-minute tip for anyone listening at home to find more balance today?
Well, first of all, we have to dispel the myth of balance, right? So I'll reject the premise of the question, in that balance doesn't happen in a day, right? Greg Renfrew, our Beauty Counter CEO and founder, is quoted as saying that we women can have it all. We just can't have it all in the same day. So in the ebbs and flows of our life, right, we're going to have everything, and one day it's going to be super, super high, and then the next day is going to suck. And in the middle, we find our equanimity that yoga provides, right? And if we can cultivate that sense of highs and lows and equanimity in the middle, we always come back to the center. We know that center exists. We're going to ride the highs and really feel the excitement, and then we're going to go through some really sucky lows, and they too shall pass. What has brought me the most sense of balance when I'm juggling all of the roles that I have as a mom and as a wife and as a new resident of this beautiful home, right? And of my two roles in both teaching group fitness and also with my beauty counter, is that I have to do something every single day for myself. And I have to do something every single day for my beauty counter business, and I have to do something every single day for my yoga. And so when I bring that sort of marathon mindset, I talk about that a lot on my Instagram. Marathon mindset, it's that you're in it for the distance. Like, there is no single fix that's going to get you there, right? And so 10 minutes, can you do something just for yourself, or just to nurture that one interest, or the nurture your relationship that you have with your kids, or with your spouse, or with parents, or whoever that might be. Like, spend those 10 minutes nurturing some aspect of your life that needs a little love.
And lastly, where can listeners find you?
I'm on Instagram at Positively Zen Jen, and on Facebook as Positively Zen. That is my business website or business Facebook page. But then I also have a very active group of healthy women. Like, we discuss all things from choosing a menstrual cup, to what deodorant we're currently loving that's safer. I'm not an esthetician, but I learn a lot about skin and gut health, for example. And one of the biggest misconceptions that I talk a lot about in my private group, which of course everyone is welcome. It's just private because that's how better conversation happens, when you know that there's a little bit of privacy around the group. But the group is also called Positively Zen. And so it's like talking about diet, right? And we're not talking about calorie burn and calorie restriction. We're talking about improving the quality of our foods so that comes out through our face, right? Because when you, excuse the French, it's not French, crap in, crap out, right? If you put crap in your body, you're going to get crap on your skin. When you put crap in your body, you're not going to have a good workout, right? Crap in, crap out. So fix the food that you're putting in your body, making sure that it's high quality and it's not going to spike your blood sugar, it's not inflammatory, and then you're going to automatically have better skin. It's not about what perfect product. I mean, there are products that are obviously more amazing than others and healthier and safer, but it is about like when a person has acne or when a person has eczema or psoriasis or any of the autoimmune. A lot of people with autoimmune diseases, they come to me, because they're trying to really clean up their lives and make sure their bodies aren't fighting all sorts of different things, right? And so they start with their food, and then they're like, okay, now what's the next step? The next step is making sure my cleaning products are better. Vinegar. Vinegar. Seriously, it's that easy. Vinegar and some essential oils, some lemon or orange. And then, because honestly, those chemicals that we're cleaning with are really harmful for our bodies. We sniff in all of those scents, and then we irritate our lungs, we irritate our tract, our breathing tract, and we're adjusting, our hormones are awry. And if we fix those things, and then we fix the products that they're putting on our skin, like all of those things together give you amazing skin.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and for sharing
my
your
pleasure.
story, and for all that you're doing to empower and educate both your students, your family, your community, and through the great work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So much gratitude.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Jennifer. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and share this episode to help spread the word. Thank you, and until next time, namaste.